Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Stardust Festival 2023 for the first time here in the city of Timmins and here at College Boreal. First of all, I would like to do a land acknowledgement, recognizing and honoring the traditional lands of the Matagami First Nation.
All right, Kinsman, there you go. Now time to pass the mic over to me. So, parenting has changed over the years, probably for the better. But I'm going to tell you a couple of my early experiences because when I was supposed to be doing homework in my room and I wanted to play the Nintendo Super Mario 3, my mom kept saying, "You're staring off the space." And I always thought, you know what? That was a pretty good thing, right? When my dad taught me how to deal with bullies in school, his advice to me was always send them to the moon. Probably not the best advice these days, but I was always very curious and interested in space exploration because it's for the dreamers, it's for the innovators, it's for the leaders, it's for the people who are advancing today's society. So even though they were trying to give me that advice as a settle down, I took it as a compliment to move forward. Now, you're a little bit spacey at work sometimes. That's not the same thing. But nonetheless, we do appreciate this amazing event, which is in our community. And a little short note, thank you very much for having us.
That's right. Big round of applause for everybody who showed up here today. Looking forward to a great week of space exploration right here with the Stardust Festival. First of all, we'd like to welcome to the podium to kick things off, Jason Michaud.
All right, good man.
Hey everyone, sorry for the delay, technical difficulties, always IT. Some rockets almost did not launch just because of a wire, so it happens to everyone. Sorry. But I'm very honored to have you all here today. This has been quite the journey. We can definitely say that Timmins is the city with the heart of gold. This would not be possible without the amazing people here. I know we are a bit behind schedule, so I don't want to take too much of your time. We are very excited to greet everyone to the discovery space that we have in the rooms in the back, where we have activities going on for the kids all day. Make sure to visit these before you leave. We are very grateful for the help by the City of Timmins and the Timmins Economic Development Corporation, MAPPACS, and very glad that our wonderful Minister of Mining, George Peary, came to Cochrane, checked out what it was, and said, we have to put this on the map in Timmins, because if he wouldn't have went out there, I'm stubborn as a goat sometimes, or my wife says stubborn as a diamond, I was really very pleased by the welcoming and support of Matagami First Nation and the City of Timmins to make this happen. And I know there is some of you that came from, literally drove like almost 3,000 kilometers or something like that to get here, or some of them literally flew in all the way to New York City, then had to drive all the way to Toronto to get into Canada, and then fly up here. So we are very happy for you showing your commitment to this, and we're without further ado, I'll kick things off because we're running behind schedule, but you'll get to hear me talk a lot more after this. So thank you so much, and I'll get Kins and Clomp right back here, and that's
All right.
I need coffee.
All right, big round of applause. Jason Michaud, the CEO of Stardust and founder of the Stardust Festival here
There we go.
this week.
All right.
Next to the podium to say a few words, our member of provincial parliament, George Peary.
Yes.
And we should say, Kinsman, even though now you're cheering for a competing hockey team, George has always set the standard for a love of the whole community. We still love the Rock.
We love the Rock.
There we go.
Hey, buddy. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, and good morning, and bonjour, wache. It's a real pleasure for me to be here this morning. And Jason said it all last night. I guess it was Rael Cousineau, a mutual friend we have from Cochrane. He said, you got to get to know this guy. I didn't know him at that time, and Rael got a hold of me and said, you should see what's going on in Cochrane, all because of this guy right there. So I went to Cochrane and I saw what they were doing. And what Jason was responsible for. And I immediately was excited, very excited, because it was full of bright young people that were involved in the future. And the future that they were pursuing, of course, was space exploration. We had kids from all of North America that participated in that event. The major colleges and universities across North America were there, so I was immediately excited. And when Jason said, well, we're going to need some help, all of the people that were participating in Cochrane actually were staying in Timmins. The hotels were full of people in Timmins. And I said, well, it only makes sense that the event be held here in Timmins. So that led me to have a conversation with Dave Landers, the CEO. We got immediately involved with the Timmins Economic Development Corporation, and of course we needed a host at the same time, and it was Gay Timolet. Gay Timolet is associated with the Matagami First Nations. They sprang into a motion activity, and so we've got Matagami First Nation that is hosting this. So we've got the perfect partnership of youth, young people. Very, very bright, experienced people from all of the space agencies here across North America, particularly the ones from the United States that are sitting here in front of us. You gotta please welcome them here to Timmins. It's an incredible honor to have these people here. And then partnering with the Ottawa First Nation, so it's an incredible win. We had Jason has said that they had a social, I guess, or a welcoming opening ceremony on Dante Club. I know you were busy last night. Yesterday morning, we were lucky to get a few of the people here at Kid Creek, and we wanted to get them down to 10,200 feet below the surface. We couldn't do that, but we got them a good second. We got them down to about 7,500 feet below about 9,000, but the real tree was getting up to 7,500 feet, where they had a sample of the world's oldest water, $2.6 billion, $2.6 billion years old, and they got samples. They brought it. Hopefully they'll bring them home, and 500 years ago, Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth, and we found the fountain of age. So I think everybody had a good tour there. I think Timmins is a fantastic city to be hosting any of these events. I'm very proud of the city of Timmins. I'm very proud to be born and raised in the Porcupine area. It's always been a center of technology. I think it's been taken for granted what it takes to build the amount of technology and bright people it takes to build mines. And so what are we doing right now? All advanced exploration. What are we focusing on? Mining in Mars, mining in the moon. But the technology starts right here. So I think there's a couple of remarks. We've got Minister Rickford will be with a video message, and he's Minister of Northern Development and Indigenous Affairs. And I think Stephen Lecce, who's the Minister of Education, there's a video there that you'll be showing. But you must know for sure that Timmins welcomes you. We welcome this event. Thank you very much for you being here today. Enjoy yourself.
Once again, a big round of applause for our member of Provincial Parliament, George Perry, for joining us here today. Next to the podium, let's make some noise for Gaten Mallet from the Monogamy First Nations, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, bon matin, bonjour. Bienvenue ici au Collège Boréal à Timmins. Good morning. You'll be hearing a lot of science talk today. I just want to briefly, where there's great success, there's humans behind it. Great champion of all this, Jason Michaud. I call them the quiet champions. This, when Minister Peary, Minister of Mines, went to Cochrane, he came back, I have to say, extremely excited. And one of the key ingredients to this success, you have to have a launch site. If you do not have a launch site, you don't have nothing. So the other quiet champion is the chief of Metagami First Nation, Chad Boisano. And in their traditional territory, there's a great area. Metagami First Nation really came out, like there was a lot of permitting and it needed to find logging roads, and so I call them the quiet champions. And I'd like to recognize the Minister of Mines, George Peary, and the Chief, Chad Boisano, as the quiet champions. When I first met Jason, I usually liked he started right into, and he was going too fast for me. NASA, the moon, and I said, hold on, Jason, where are you from? Well, I said, you're from Cochrane. He says, no, you don't know where I'm from. It's a small village. I said, what's a small village? Well, I said, it's near Drewburyville. It's called Magpie. I said, Jason, my grandfather worked at Magpie. It's a little village on the Algoma Central Railway between Sault Ste. Marie and Hearst. And so I tell him, I know where Magpie is. Jason says, my grandfather, Armand Michaud, worked at Magpie. Well, there was only about 15 people working there, and that was the beginning of the birth of the village Drewburyville. So his grandfather and my grandfather worked together in 1949. So I'm honored and proud to be associated with you, Jason. I'll leave you with this. Thank you.
Once again, Gaten Mallet from the Metagami First Nation. And next up here to speak, she couldn't be here today, but she's got some lovely words on the video screen, our Mayor of Timmins, Michelle Boileau.
Bonjour, watching. Welcome to the City of Timmins and this year's Stardust Festival. We are proud that one of the largest Indigenous STEM events has touched down in Timmins. If this is your first visit, I hope you can take some time to explore our wonderful city. Timmins is fast becoming a hub of science, space, and technology. Home to Canada's stratospheric balloon base and part of Canadian and French space exploration and experiment. In Timmins, we celebrate prospectors, explorers, and pioneers who push the boundaries in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We embrace a green future and sustainable resource production while we look up to the stars lit by the beautiful Northern Lights. We wish you all a fantastic week of presentations, storytellers, and rocket launches, among other things. We hope you leave here feeling inspired. De la part de la ville de Timmins, je vous souhaite la bienvenue et un gros merci de la part Festival Stardust. Thank you for being a part of the Stardust Festival, and welcome to the City of Timmins.
All right, Kinsman finally shared the microphone with me. 3 times in a row, that's pretty greedy, eh? We'll get them to launch in space, Kinsman, and take care of that. The next individual that I want to introduce, I've been a big supporter of him ever since I moved here. because we used to work at KID together, and I got invited on the engineering pub crawl as an HR guy. Can you believe it? And those stories I signed do not disclosure, so I can't bring them up today. But he's done tremendous work for this community, always cared about the progression, of course, and looking after our youth and building that generation. Councilman Steve Black.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank first and foremost everyone that's been involved in organizing this event and participating in this event, and our dignitaries from around North America that have come to participate in this event. It's an honor to have you in our community, and really something special that hopefully we can grow for years to come. I first met Jason, I think it was 2021. And he was talking to me about, wanting to do a festival like this and the possibility of coming to Timmins. And fortunately, we had just had a member of our provincial government elected to office and appointed as a minister. And I suggested that he go and talk to people like George and talk to our current mayor at the time, because I wasn't on city council at the time, and discuss the options of Timmins, because we have a great capability of hosting events like this. And I'll tell you, just a little acknowledgement to Minister Peary. He's a busy man. We were just down in London at AMO this past week, and I've been to many AMOs over the years in my previous terms, and it was the first time I got to be at an AMO and have the Ministers Forum being introduced to them, and the minister from Timmins. And it was a really special moment for myself, and I want to thank him for his efforts in supporting the community and everything that we do here in the community. And I just wanted to say, I didn't get the chance to talk to you at AMO. I've been to probably 5 or 6 AMOs, and to hear, the Minister of Timmins, George Peary, was a special moment for me and our community. So thank you for your efforts, George. When you're a little kid, space is one of those things that you're in awe. The songs that you sing as a little child, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, from everything, growing up for me and my kids, Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear was the cool guy. It's just something that has always drawn people in, and they've wanted to. I mean, even the billionaires of the world are trying to build spaceships and launch them up and take part, right? So this is a unique opportunity to promote, the STEM opportunities throughout our youth and our Indigenous partners and communities. And it's truly something special. When I was going to university, I had 2 choices to make. One was whether I went to Carleton for aerospace engineering, or the other was whether I went to Queen's University for general engineering, which ended up being mining engineering. So I went the opposite direction and started digging down instead of flying up. But it was always something that had interested me, and if it wasn't for parental influence, and I thank them because I've had a very good career in mining, but if it wasn't for parental influence, if I went just on my own gut, I might have ended up at Carleton doing aerospace, because it's always been something that's fascinated myself. We always like to obtain what we can't see and can't fathom just in our hands, and it's been a unique thing. So I'm going to go across the street and tour around here and check out everything that there is at this event. I want to thank all our city partners who have come together and made this possible. It's a great event, and I thank you and welcome you to the city of Timmins. Someone organizing here was telling me that there's almost 20 different universities represented in the city of Timmins this week, and that's fabulous and fantastic. So, good luck in the rocket launch and everything else that's going on. I hope you get to see a balloon launch if you haven't seen one yet this week. And just thank you for coming to the city of Timmins. Thank you, Jason, and your team for choosing to host this year. It's a great opportunity for our community. I should acknowledge, because no one's done it yet, we do have the Crimson Dawn Klingon Assault Group here as well.
Yes.
So I do want to acknowledge their participation. They've been great ambassadors for space and everything to do with promotion of activities in youth as well. So thank you for coming, guys.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Councilman Steve Black. Now, events like this do not happen without the help of provincial funding. And we have a very special presentation now. I would like to welcome to the main podium to tell us all about this amazing check presentation with the Mat Tax presentation here this afternoon and this morning, Noella Ronaldo.
Thank you very much. I didn't realize I was going to be speaking this morning, but thank you for joining us in this. This is quite special for the city of Timmins. The MAT tax is the municipal accommodation tax, and it is given out through a committee of people that are individuals in the community that represent the community when it comes to tourism. The office that does this is our Economic Development Corporation. And what's nice about this is this event is economic development. My portfolio, which is community development, this is really touches on so much in the city, and it is, of course, a tourism event. So we appreciate you coming. We appreciate Jason for the work that he's done in bringing this here. The city of Timmins is thrilled that you're here. I hope you enjoy your week here as you're visiting our city, and to understand that from an economic development point of view, we're thrilled that you're here to give us that perspective of the future of what we can look at. And from a community economic development, this will really encourage our youth and to understand that there is no limits to what they can do. And we really appreciate this. And the work with the partnership of the Indigenous community is also another great part of this. So on behalf of the Mat Tax, I'd like to bring one of our committee members, Mike Kentish, out. And Jason, if I can have you come to represent. This is the first check that we were able to give to Jason, and it's for $60,000. Thank you. Congratulations, Jason. Don't bring it to the bank.
All right, Kinsman, you're supposed to be doing these introductions. You're so busy staring at a big check.
That's right, $60,000, again, without the help of the MAT tax and provincial funding, these events will never happen. And again, a big round of applause for the MAT tax presentation here. Big thanks to Noella Ronaldo for showing up and being a part of today's presentation. As the presentations continue here at Collège Boreal, next up, we've got a nice video from Greg Rickford. He's the Minister of Northern Development, Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Stardust Festival, hosted by the Stardust Alliance, the scenic locations, Timmins, and the Matagami First Nation. This event is not just a celebration of space exploration, it holds a greater purpose to promote and celebrate Indigenous culture, raise awareness of mental health, establish Sure. Yeah. Reach new heights, redefine space. Wish you a successful 2023 Stardust Festival. Thank you for this superb opportunity to be with you virtually today. Thank you.
All right, there. Thank you. Everyone having a good time so far? All right, there we go. This is You told me the Klingons were from Star Wars, Kinsman. Oh, that's cool.
I'm getting booed.
See, when I take Kinsman's advice, I get into a little bit of trouble here. But everyone has said this. We have so many amazing visitors to the community. They're even laughing at our jokes, which are terrible. So we appreciate you and love you so much. But do you know this? We have some folks from NASA here. That's pretty awesome, right? How cool is that? And it's Steve's. Thank you. How did I forget Smith, Jason? I should give up my career as a broadcaster when you can't remember the last name, Steve Smith. But Steve Smith from NASA, welcome to the stage. He's going to make an introduction to his awesome video we're going to see. Welcome to Timmins, by the way, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Smith. I'm one of two here today, so I'm Thing 1. Thing 2's my friend over there. And really, the only way you can tell us apart is the bow tie. So you can't say, oh, the tall, oh, wait, no, the thin, hold on, the one with the, dang it. So my mother was not creative at all. I'm very generic. I'm so sorry. So I have yet another Steve to share with you. I didn't know I was doing this, just like the rest of you. Jason walks up to me, just like, hey, do this thing. And I'm like, okay. So I have another Steve, Steve Bowen, who's going to share something with you from the International Space Station.
Greetings. I'm NASA astronaut Steve Bowen, currently 250 miles above Europe at the International Space Station. The Stardust Festival, taking place in Timmins, Ontario, Canada, is set to witness the convergence of space and Earth. Thanks to the collaborative efforts of the Space Foundation, Stardust, NASA, and the Canadian Space Agency. This festival serves as a vibrant celebration of Indigenous culture, while also shedding light on mental health conditions. It acts as a platform for fostering connections between Canadian aeronautics, aerospace, and defense industries to the Indigenous and rural northern youth. This week, you will have the opportunity to partake in activities such as launching rockets, maneuvering rockets, through telescopes, and immersing yourself in aerospace exhibitions. Throughout the festival, luminaries from NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, Woodward, Lockheed Martin, NBA, and Raytheon Technologies will share their awe-inspiring journeys. Indigenous celebrations, rich heritage, Matkami First Nation of whose traditional land the event takes place. Our aspiration for this week at Stardust is to empower you to discover your rightful place in the vast and ever-spanning realm of space.
So my favorite part of all these videos, you may not know, but they all kind of do that go up thing. There's a thing on Kibo that was supposed to be this really cool experiment for centripetal force and all that sort of stuff, but now it's just an attic. So they're basically going up in the attic at the end of the thing.
Awesome, Steve. Once again, a big round of applause for NASA, Steve Smith, joining us here for these amazing presentations, and again, being a part of the Stardust Festival 2023 here at College Boreal, and the whole week geared with so many amazing presentations from so many amazing human beings from all around this planet as we all congregate here in the wonderful city of Timmins this week. And our first keynote speaker that I'd like to welcome to the main stage. Please make a big round of applause for Maghalie Durapo Latorno. She's an engineering student at the Canadian Space Agency.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Hello today to industry leaders, members of government, students, members of the Timmins community. Bonjour, hello, wache. I'm so honored to be here speaking in front of you today. I was born and raised in Timmins, Ontario. You might have walked by this building that you see right here. That's my former high school. The rink across the street. You're okay. The rink across the street where MT has their exhibition hall today, I used to play countless ringette games and practices there. So it really truly means the world to me to see so many people who came all across the world in Timmins, Ontario for the Stardust Festival. If you had told me a few years ago that I'd be here speaking in front of you about space and have so many people who love space in my hometown, I wouldn't have believed you. So really thank you so much for being here today. My name is Magali Zoropouletono. I am a fourth-year mechatronics engineering student at McMaster University, and I recently completed my second internship with the Canadian Space Agency working on the Stardust program. I'm also the mission manager for the McMaster Interdisciplinary Satellite Team, and I absolutely love space. So thank you to the event organizers and the CSA. Thank you, Mr. Michaud, for inviting me to speak today. I'm truly honored. So today I split my presentation in two. So the first half, I'll go over a bit of my path to the space sector. And the reason being, I see some students in the room, and I really hope that my story can inspire other students from Northern Ontario to pursue this field because it's truly an exciting field and a good time to love space. In my second part of the presentation, we'll go over the Stratospheric Balloon Program at CSA, because if you didn't know, Timmins is actually home to the only stratospheric balloon base in Canada. So I'll be going over a bit of that. So for me, I've always been passionate about space. I used to be a kid and we would go camping with my family and I'd look up at the night sky, and I'm sure many of you can relate, but I just wonder, what's out there? There's so much we need to explore, and stars, I try to learn the names of the stars and constellations. But coming from Northern Ontario, it was sometimes difficult to imagine myself working in this field because I didn't know anyone who was directly in that field. And this is one of the reasons why things like the Stardust Festival are so important to bring that awareness here in Northern Ontario, because we do have students here who like space. So what started everything for me was really the Youth Stratos program, which was an initiative by the Canadian Space Agency and Science Timmins, which is the local science organization, that allowed high school students to launch their own experiments to the stratosphere. So when I heard about this opportunity, I immediately jumped on it because it was such a wonderful opportunity to build an experiment from start to finish and launch it to the stratosphere. So at 17 years old, I got my first introduction to electronics through this program. I learned how to program, and I developed a cosmic ray detector, specifically muons. Launched it to the stratosphere, presented my results at the Canadian Online Science STEM Fair. And that's what started everything for me, because I got to meet experts at the CSA at the Timmins Balloon Base, and I got to learn from them and learn from members of the Timmins community. So that's something that I see some students, from local students, if you like space, look into this program because it is such a wonderful opportunity to learn about this. So after I did this experiment, it was time to choose a post-secondary institution. So I decided to go to McMaster University, pursue mechatronics engineering, and I did my first co-op as a research assistant on a satellite-based optical communications project. And that really taught me how to think outside the box and learn quickly, because I didn't have much optics experience after my first year of university. So there's many reasons I chose to apply to McMaster University, but one of them was the many space teams it has. So McMaster has a CubeSat team, Mars rover team, rocketry team, we have analog research team, we have the Planetary Society, we have the McMaster Astronomy Club. So applying to this university, I knew that I was going to find people there who had those same passions. And today, like this week, we can see so many different universities who also have rocketry clubs and are here. So there's really many universities who have more and more space teams, and I think that's just wonderful. So when I joined university, that was my goal. I wanted to join a space team. So I joined the McMaster Interdisciplinary Satellite Team in my first year of university as the hardware specialist on the command and data handling subteam. And I learned so much from that experience because in my first year, I obviously had so much to learn. And I learned from the other students on the team. I learned from the PIs. I learned from the work itself. And our CubeSat actually launched to space on March 14th of this year. So it launched on a SpaceX Falcon 9. It went to the International Space Station, and it later deployed to, from the International Space Station. So that's what you can see in the pictures here. So the first picture that you see right here, that's in our clean room on campus. We built a clean room just specifically for our CubeSat. That's right before our final integration. Here you can see that's a picture from the launch from Cape Canaveral. And then once it was deployed from the International Space Station, there was 3 CubeSats that were deployed with our batch. And here you can see shortly after deployment, the first CubeSat you see on your left, that's the CubeSat from McMaster. So seeing our CubeSat launch is a moment I will never forget. I wish I was in Florida to watch the launch. Some of our team was. I was back on campus with the rest of my teammates, and seeing the countdown, and you see all those years of work go up, and you can see you worked on that, and it's a moment I will never forget. So all of these experiences brought me to applying to internships at the Canadian Space Agency. And I was fortunate enough to get hired to work as an engineering student on the Stardust program. And it was truly, honestly, was a dream come true and exceeded all my expectations. And my expectations were high to start with. Last year I worked on the 2022 Stratospheric Balloon campaign. And this year I worked on the 2023 Stratospheric Balloon campaign. My last day was actually yesterday. And through the Stratos program, it was such an exciting project to work on. I got to work on a variety of tasks in electrical engineering, software engineering, mechanical. I did some electrical assembly, and my favorite part of them all was to come back here to Timmins and launch these stratospheric balloons. So last year I helped with the operations of 7 stratospheric balloons. This year, again, another 7. And it was truly life-changing. The Stratos team at CSA is really unique, and one of the things I loved the most was how you had to think quick on your feet to solve problems, because everything can work in the lab, and then as soon as you bring it out of the lab, you start finding bugs or finding issues, and you have to really work as a team under really tight deadlines to troubleshoot this. So it was, you can see from a few of the pictures, it was really, really nice, really wonderful experience. Last year I did some software for some of the sensors in our avionics, and I assembled the batteries that powered the Canadian payloads on the zero pressure balloon flights, which are the bigger balloons you see in these pictures. So that's what got me to where I am today. So this brings me to talking about the Stratos program itself. So like I said, Timmins has the only stratospheric balloon base in Canada. So there's a few reasons why Timmins was chosen. A few of them are the favorable latitude, the weather conditions in August are, they're good to launch several stratospheric balloons. We have the infrastructure to accommodate all these people, all these scientists that come to work on the campaign, and the low density of population in key areas surrounding Timmins make it a good place to launch stratospheric balloons. So the Stratos program really allows Canadian industry and academia to perform scientific experiments and validate new technology in a near space environment. They launch from the Timmins Airport, the balloon base, and it's a partnership with the Centre National d'Études Spatiales, which is the French space agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. So if you're new to stratospheric balloons and you're unsure of what they are, I'll talk a bit about the kind of experiments that you can do in the stratosphere. So you can do some climate-related experiments. You can do some radiation studies. My high school payload I did was radiation studies. Obviously, university payloads and academic payloads are way more complex than what I did back in high school, but you can do a lot of radiation studies. You can do atmospheric composition measurements, astronomy. This year we had a telescope launch on a stratospheric balloon, and those types of flights are interesting because you need a really precise pointing system if you want to point at specific stars. You can do testing for satellite components because stratospheric balloons are so much cheaper than satellites that if you want to validate your technology before going up to space, you can launch it on a stratospheric balloon, and then you recover your system, and you can improve it afterward. You can also do student experiments. So there's really a variety of things you can do in the stratosphere. So we have two types of balloons that we launch from the Timmins Stratospheric Balloon Base. The first is zero pressure balloons. They're the bigger types of balloons that we launch here, and the payloads can weigh up to 1.1 ton. So some of the components in the flight train, the most obvious one is number 2 here, which is the balloon envelope. So that's what really carries the payload up to the stratosphere. And number 1 and 6 are interesting because they allow to control the altitude during the flight. So at the top you have an exhaust valve. So if you want to lower your altitude, you can open the exhaust valve and then you lose some helium and therefore lose altitude. Number 6, you have the ballast container. So if you want to, on the contrary, if you want to gain altitude, you can drop these ballasts, which are little metal beads, and you drop weight, and therefore you gain altitude. And then there's obviously many communications module, avionics, parachutes, which are all part of the flight train. So I will go a quick video of a launch. It does go over it pretty quickly, so I'll explain some of these steps a bit more in depth, but it gives you an idea of the different steps that are taken on launch night. That's the principal balloons. You see they're starting to inflate it. And that's the final launch. So there's a lot that happened in that video. So I'll explain a bit some of the key steps during launch day. So after a weather briefing, and then if you have the go to go ahead with launch, there's a launch countdown. And one of the first things that we do on the tarmac at the airport is put up this balloon that we like to call the fish. So it goes up, depending on the launch, the altitude varies, but I'll say around 200 meters. And you put flags at a certain interval, and that indicates the wind direction and wind strength close to ground. And that's really important before you release the balloon and before the launch. Afterwards, you can see that there was two balloons on the tarmac. The first one we call the backs, which is used to levitate the payloads before launch, because at launch you don't want a big pull on the payloads. You don't want the payloads to drag on the ground. So this first balloon is really only used for the payloads so that they're slightly above ground before you launch the main balloon. And you can see it's a great picture. If you're from the Timmins area, you might know Dave Lineville. He takes incredible pictures at every launch. And this balloon actually deflates during the flight, but it deflates by itself. Then you'll bring out the payloads. So this is one of the payloads that launched this year. So we have some bigger gondolas as well. But there's many different experiments that are on this payload. And then throughout this process, there's also many communications tests. We take out the communication modules, the avionics. So lots of tests that happen throughout these steps. Then when you start inflating the principal balloon, it's really impressive to see, actually, I have to say. And the balloon looks really big, but if you look here, like these are people. And you can see that's a transport truck over there. And that looks really big, but the balloon actually keeps going all the way over here. They only inflate a part of it at launch time. So it's with the flight train and everything, it can measure up to 2/3 of the CN Tower. So that's what it looks like before launch when both balloons are inflated. And then this is from one of our launches that just happened in August. That's how we do a launch. So you might have noticed, it looked kind of like a jellyfish when it launched, and because it's not fully inflated when you first launch it. And if you're not familiar with, if your background is not in science, essentially why this happens, because with the pressure change as you go up in the atmosphere, helium will actually expand, and in flight it will look fully inflated, like you see on the picture on the right. And the second type of balloons we launched are much smaller. The flights are usually 2 to 3 hours. They're a lot cheaper to launch, so they take a lot less resources than the CSA launches those by themselves. So you can see there's the principal balloon, there's a separator, the parachute, the gondola. So this part right here would be the avionics, and then you would place the payloads in that area that you see right here. And here's a quick video of a launch from this year. So this was actually from Canada STEM. So STEM Canada, Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. They have a competition every year for called Canada STEM, where university students can develop their own payloads. So this was the launch from the Stratomeres this year, which was a team from, I believe it was UBC. So as I approach the end of my presentation, I really wanted to have 2 takeaway messages. I have a message for students who are aspiring to pursue this field in my next slide, but the first one is actually to people who are no longer students. We have many members from industry, government agencies, academia, and I really wanted to convey that message about the importance of outreach. Back in 2018, there was the Stratospheric Balloon open house. And that was the first time I got to visit the base. And coming from Northern Ontario, having that dream about pursuing, a career in the space industry, seeing that open house made that dream attainable. I got to talk with experts at the Canadian Space Agency. I got to speak with scientists from all over the world about their experiments. And that really took that passion and made it into a concrete goal that I could reach for. So, initiatives like the Stardust Festival here, you guys will change lives by being here for the youth in the region. You might inspire one student, you might inspire 10, you might inspire 100, who knows, but being here in Northern Ontario, it really means the world to our community, and it will change the lives of students here, because outreach is so important. And even, presentations in high schools, open house, it does make a difference. And if it hadn't been for those outreach initiatives, if it hadn't been for, the Youth Stratos program by CSC and Science Timmins, I don't think I would be here speaking to you today. And, with the Youth Stratos program, in my year in 2019, we were 2 students who participated. And this year, we launched it last week, there was 10 experiments. And I'm just so happy to see the program grow, because students have the interest, they might not just know how to get to where they want to be. And my second message is to students. So my path is only starting. I'm 21, and I have a lot to learn still. But this is a few tips that I've learned so far in my journey, and things that I wish I'd known when I was starting out back in high school. So the first is, don't be afraid to dream big. Setting a goal is the first step. And this is really true, because if you have a dream and you tell yourself from the start that you can't achieve it because your dream is too big, you'll never get to where you want to be. So set that goal and make a plan, work towards it day in, day out, and it's possible to get there. Stay informed on space-related news and events. Obviously, if you like space, stay up to date on space events. Do personal projects to learn new skills. So back in high school, that was my Stratospheric Balloon project. But nowadays, there's so many resources online. If you look at Raspberry Pis or Arduino, you don't need to have a strong background in coding or electronics to start. So you can use those resources available to you. Seize every opportunity and create your own if none are available. For example, in my former high school, I see the two students here today, they founded a STEM club last year, and there was none before. So if you see that you have a passion, gather a group of students and make a STEM club. You can start your own initiatives if no opportunities are available at the moment. Join space-related clubs and teams or create one. So that's what I did in university, and it was really important for me to do that, to meet other people who also like space. Choose a post-secondary institution that has a strong space community. I touched on that a bit in the last point. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This sounds cliche, but it's really important because especially if you're a student, you're doing co-ops or internships. One thing I've learned is you're not expected to know everything right off the bat. You're expected to have a willingness to learn, to put in the time and effort, to bring that passion and really do your absolute best to learn quickly and get the job done. But don't be afraid to ask questions. When I was working at CSD, I would always ask questions to many people, and it wasn't necessarily directly in my field, but there are people who have the expertise and a lot of the time really want to talk about what they're working on. Same with university professors. They usually love to talk about their research. So ask those questions and you'll learn so much. And the final one, probably the most important one, is remember that challenges are part of the process. And don't give up. So today I shared a lot of the successes I've had along my journey, but there were failures, there were challenges, and no one gets to where they want to be without failing a little bit along the way. It's how you react to that and how you get back up that makes a difference. And I'm so happy I did overcome those challenges because I'm very excited. The next step in my journey, I'm beginning a one-year internship at MDA, and I'm so excited to be joining that team. I'll be working with the electrical team on Canadarm3. And I'm just so excited to get that started. But that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't overcome the challenges along the way. My co-ops at the Canadian Space Agency wouldn't have happened if I hadn't overcome challenges. So if you're a student, you'll encounter adversity along the way, but don't give up because it's possible to get there. So this concludes my presentation. If we have a few minutes for questions, feel free to ask questions. Vous pouvez poser vos questions en français aussi si vous préférez. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you. Merci.
All right. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was at 21 years old, already working your dream job. When I was 21, I was living in my parents' basement, getting angry that my mom didn't bring my pizza pops down in time. You're well ahead of the curve, but that was tremendous. And thank you for the inspirational messages at the end. We extremely appreciate it. Awesome work. All right. So before we get into our next keynote speaker, we do have another presentation, and I've only had to ask for her name 4 times. It's usually Mark's job, but he's over there with the minister doing selfies and TikTok videos. So he's left me for the afternoon, but it's my extreme privilege to welcome Janice 4 times, and I didn't blow it.
Good job.
And she's got a little bit to chat about and a special video presentation.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. You got it right. Thank you so much. Janice Hedlip from the Canadian Space Agency, and I want to add all my gratitude and thanks to Matagami First Nation for hosting us here, for all of the supporters that Jason has miraculously rallied to make this event happen. And also just Magali has inspired me. I learned more about the Stardust program from her presentation than I have in my 3 years at the agency, and great job. So big things I'm sure we'll see. So I have the honor of sharing with you this video that comes from one of our most visible employees at the Canadian Space Agency, and who would love to be here. There's always challenges. So I always say we're the little sister of NASA. Maybe, yeah, family. And which means we get like the hand-me-downs and we have less allowance. And we actually do a lot of the work behind the scenes, but you know, we're outnumbered when it comes to the photos. But our 4 active astronauts are amazing, and they're really integral parts of a lot of missions. And it makes it really challenging for us to get them out around to meet the public, which is something they love to do because they're great educators and they're very passionate about inspiring everyone who, and reflecting on their own experience of how they were inspired. So when we can't bring an astronaut, we try to do the next best thing, which is to have a little video message to share with everyone. So without further delay, here is Jeremy Hansen. If you haven't already heard about him, you will be hearing a lot about him. Part of Artemis II crew, and a really awesome human being. And I know wherever he is, he'd rather be here hanging out with you. So take it away. Drum roll. Houston, Texas is really far. That's why he sounds so quiet. Like, it takes a long time for the sound to travel along this cup and string. So try again. This is where I break out my comedy routine, not karaoke. So fun fact about Jeremy, quite tall. In fact, he's like at the upper limit of acceptable height for an astronaut. And I don't envy him, having spent 10+ days in the equivalent of a camper van with 3 other humans. But he'll scrunch himself in there and figure it out. So I can tell you about other things that are happening at the festival. There will shortly be a discovery room open for hands-on STEM events for young people. There are exhibits across the street, I think, too. And more exciting presentations like Magali's. Don't forget to pick up a poster. Have a great rest of your day. Stay curious about space. What they call other duties. Okay. Klingons are disgusted. They're leaving. We really pissed them off. They're like, we're not taking this. Just goes to show you, everything Magali said was true. Lots of failures. Keep trying, make it work, figure out the bugs. Just build suspense. That's why we scrap launches. Just builds suspense. I don't think it would. You think so? I think that'll be like a massive feedback problem. Can we feed it through the mic? Okay, good luck.
With Indigenous elders talking about Mother Earth and our planet, that they have influenced my journey as I prepare to go. In space and on Earth, we can only overcome big challenges when we work together. When you look at your own lives, I encourage you to know what you want, set goals for yourself, and then do one really important thing: share those goals with others. You don't do anything of significance by yourself. It takes a team to do big things. And the same goes for your life. So set goals, share them with others, and you will be amazed how people will come around you and help you achieve those goals. I applaud you for the investment you're making in yourself, and realize that the relationships that you can build, conversations you can have, could be some of these people who will help you achieve your goals. You are our future. You are our future thought leaders. It's important that you are supported and that you believe in yourself. You can have an important future. I encourage you to make the most of this time. Set big goals, dream big, share those goals with others. You will be amazed. All the very best.
Yeah, she's going to be telling people about the youth activities, which is pretty cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Always a couple technical glitches, but that was amazing. All right. So I believe we have one more address to the crowd, and then we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Is that right, Jason? All right. And we're going to continue on with keynote speakers. But Diana Phillips with a great jacket. How do I get one of those jackets? I will. I don't just say that. I actually come see you in 5 minutes. But I'd like to welcome Diana Phillips to the stage to tell you about all the amazing youth activities that they have going on throughout the course of the Stardust Fest.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just a very quick announcement about the discovery spaces that have been created here. We're really looking forward to the youth coming in, but this is the discovery space is a place for not just the youth, it is for everybody. So be sure to come into rooms 117 and 214. There are extraordinary objects in there that come directly from the NASA space program. I'm happy and fortunate to say that a number of my colleagues who are all certified as I am myself by NASA have brought in not just things for children to build, but artifacts to touch, to hold, and possibly to get into. And just a little secret between you, me, and all of us, there is a $500,000 pair of pants from the spacesuit industry that have been worn by an astronaut. Don't miss that. So 117 and 214, we should all be there. So if there's any problems with the rooms, all we need to do is go down the hallway, turn to the left, turn to the right, and we are there. We're waiting for you to come. and enjoy this festival, enjoy the activities, pass on the word. We don't want to leave here with anything. We brought basically all the activities for children and participants to use, make, take, and spread the word and get them hooked on space like we are. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
All right. I'm just picking microphones off people left and right. Lucky this wasn't the COVID time. But thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of amazing activities happen here in College Boreal. And then, of course, you're not from Timmins, just across the street there. I got that right, at the Sportsplex. Stardust Exhibition and Career Fair Day. Who wants to quit their job today and get a career in space? Is it just me? No one wants to. Yeah, come right there. That, close down the bowling alley right up to space. You never leave that bowling alley, please, Nat. We let everyone but Nat quit their jobs and go to space because we love them so much. So I believe, Mr. Jason, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to take a quick, what do you say, 5 or 6 minutes? He gives me the thumbs up, and we'll be back right for our next presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.
tour? Okay.
It's the mic that we're putting on. All right, welcome back as we continue along with the Stardust Festival here at College Boreal. All amazing faces hanging out with us all today during the opening ceremonies and all week long. And again, we're being presented with amazing people, amazing folk along the space industry right across the planet. And again, right here in Timmins for the first time in 2023. And our second keynote speaker this morning for you from the Space Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the COO, the Chief Operating Officer of the Space Foundation, Shelley Brunswick.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Awesome. So who's here to talk about space? And the Klingons definitely are interested in talking about space. So before I start this, I want to share a little bit about my background and how I got into space. I was in the U.S. Air Force for 29 years. The first 12, I was an enlisted airman doing personnel. And then for my last 17 years in the Air Force, I worked in space acquisition. So I learned about ground stations and launch vehicles and satellites and rockets. Primarily, you'd think military space. And so my last 9 years working at Space Foundation, I've really learned about how space is commercial and how space is for all of us. And that's the journey I want to share with you today about how space is part of our everyday lives. Now, we are in Timmins, and what I'd like to share with you is how space, Colorado Springs, where the Space Foundation is headquartered, is a lot like Timmins and what we share in common. I have a slide up on there with some pictures. You can see Colorado Springs and Colorado in general was Native Americans lived there. And so we have a picture of Native Americans living in Garden of the Gods, which is one of the most beautiful city parks in America. I also highlight in one of the black and white photos, mining communities. So Colorado Springs was built on mining. And for those of you in Timmins, I think you know a little bit about mining, if I'm correct. Megan, I know we got to visit your mine this week, so thank you so much for a great tour. And so there's a little bit of mining in common between Colorado Springs and Timmins. But then when things changed for Colorado Springs and how it became more technological and innovation is when they started to put military bases there. They put the Army, Fort Carson, Peterson Air Force Base, the Air Force Academy. But one of the pivotal moments in Colorado Springs was when Space Command got placed in Colorado Springs. And that opened up innovation, entrepreneurship, not only for space, but for cyber. And that leads us to where Colorado Springs is today, a great hub for space innovation and cybersecurity. And as we've heard from the mayor of Timmins and ministers of Canada, the opportunities here in Timmins are to the sky, to the moon and beyond, right? There's limitless opportunity for how the city of Timmins and this region can become a space and innovation hub. So I'm going to talk a little bit about space. When we think about space, we've seen some NASA astronauts. We have seen NASA astronauts and Canadian Space Agency astronauts. But what I'm showing on this slide is in 2021, private citizens made it to space via commercial efforts. So think about that. Up until 2021, if you, Robert, wanted to go to space, you had to be an astronaut for a government agency. But in 2021, that all changed. Now, our Klingons don't even have to have their own warship. They can contract with Blue Origin, and they can go to space as space tourists. So we do have Klingons. For those of you who are virtual today, we have some Klingons in the audience. So we wish you were here, but maybe next year. Then we're going to look at 2022. What happened in 2022 that was amazing? So we have some NASA folks in the audience, but what we know is the James Webb Space Telescope unfurled and started sending back amazing images from the earliest moments of our universe. And we started seeing these pictures and data coming back. We also had what we saw was the commercialization as we look to return to the moon and go on to Mars. And what do I mean by commercialization? So again, I want to thank some of our amazing sponsors, MDA. We also have Lockheed Martin. But this vehicle in the picture is the future version of a lunar rover. And the partners on this are General Motors, so some of you may know them as a car manufacturer, and Lockheed Martin. But they're not the only ones. We also have the Japanese Space Agency and Toyota. So when you think about space, yes, it is actually those space companies like Lockheed Martin and MDA and the Japanese Space Agency and more, but it's also commercial companies that are making products and services we're using every day. So let's talk about where we are today, 2023. So in 2021, we had private citizens go to space. In 2023, SpaceX is working to launch private citizens for a journey around the moon. So now, Robert, not only can you go to space, you can now go around the moon with commercial companies. And the Klingons eventually will be able to take you to Mars, right? And we're also looking at, we've had some Artemis astronauts from Canadian Space Agency speak already, Jeremy Hansen, but you can see the Artemis missions are being announced. So again, we as humanity are returning to the moon, this time to stay and to go on to Mars. So it's an exciting time. We're also seeing we have the European Space Agency still launching missions for research, as is Canada, the United States, and others. But the big thing I want to highlight up on the slide is, you know, we all talk about the International Space Station, and we had an amazing video from a NASA astronaut talking from the ISS to us this morning. But the ISS is going to be decommissioned in 2030. And so what NASA is doing is they are awarding private contracts with commercial space stations to go into orbit to replace the ISS. So eventually, Robert, you're going to get to not only go around the moon, but you may get to stop at one of those private space stations and now have a vacation there. So you can see in just a few short years how advanced space is taking us, but the innovation that is open to every citizen and commercialization. So what we're going to talk about today is, yes, we are going to the moon. I think we all got that, right? We're going to the moon to stay. We're going to go on to Mars. But what I really want to talk to you about is how space is for all of us and how space is coming right back here on planet Earth. And it's helping to solve some of our greatest challenges, and how each and every one of you, as well as each and every one that's following us virtually, can be part of it. So the sun has come out, so I hope everyone can still see our slides. But when we think about the space economy, what does that really mean? What are those numbers? How does it impact you? So in 2022, the global space economy was $546 billion. By 2030, that will be over 1 trillion. And by 2040, over $3 trillion. But the most important number to take away is that in 2022, 78% of the space economy was commercial, which means it's products and services you're using every day, right? We're talking right now virtually on Zoom and TikTok. Telecommunications is all based on space technology and cybersecurity. So we're going to play this video, which shares a little bit of space technology that started from the Apollo era, 60 years ago, that you're using right now every day. So we're going to see if the video plays. So the sound's a little low, but what we'll do is we'll see if we can put the mic there.
relationship committed to achieving the goal, landing a man on the moon, and returning him safely to the earth.
So did you all recognize some products and services you're using in those videos? And I put a slide up for you as well. I talked about Zoom, but some of you have had the privilege of meeting my husband, Jerry Henderson. He was a firefighter for 30 years. And thanks to that Apollo era space technology, fire retardant clothing, he got to come home every night. But how many of you have used fire retardant bedding for your children or other apparatuses? So fire retardant clothing dates back all the way to the Apollo era. You can see, everyone pull out your cell phone. I know you got them handy. So inside your cell phones, and my NASA person, Steve, you can confirm, many of your cell phones, you're only able to take those amazing selfies because of NASA imaging technologies that was developed for the space program. You can also look at, here are some health applications. So we talk a lot about the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's amazing, sending back those images and information from the earliest moments of our universe. But I want to talk about the Hubble Space Telescope, because what's so amazing about the Hubble Space Telescope is that it was designed to look into space for anomalies. And a company took that technology and commercialized it, and now that technology looks into the human body for anomalies, and that's how we created mammogram detection. So because of space technology, we're saving millions of lives by early cancer detection. Now, sometimes people say, well, okay, that's all great, but we have a lot of challenges here on Earth, right? Space and sustainability, those don't coexist. Let's solve our problems here on Earth first. And I say, we can solve our problems here on Earth, and space technology is part of the solution. How many of you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals that were created by the UN in 2015? So they created 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015 to be solved by 2030. So we're a little behind. Some of the ones we at Space Foundation really focus on are partnerships, and I'm so grateful to represent the Space Foundation at this Stardust Festival and be a partner, but our good partners with ISESCO and Robert from Ecuador and NASA, all our amazing partners in the room. And so that's one of our Sustainable Development Goals, as well as gender equality and quality education and innovation. So the first one, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the Sustainable Development Goals, and if you want to learn more about them, you can go to the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, so unusa.org. There's a drop-down menu that talks about all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how space technology is helping to solve each and every one. But I'm going to hit a couple of the highlights. First of all, food security. That's a challenge around the world as we see climate change happening. So on this slide, there are 3 different types of space technology that are helping to solve food insecurity. So the first one on as you're in the audience, far right, or far left, those are 3 entrepreneurs that I met in Doha. They were going to Qatar University studying to be nutritionists. Nutritionist doesn't sound like a space career, does it? Could be at NASA, but in general, they were studying to be nutritionists, and what they wanted to do was create a healthy snack that would also help to eliminate food waste. So what they did is they looked for fruits and vegetables that would normally be thrown away, and they used NASA freeze-dried technology to create a healthy, delicious snack. So now they've got a healthy, delicious snack helping to reduce food insecurity in the Middle East, as well as creating a way of not throwing away fruits and vegetables. So they've done that. And so again, using a traditional form, I'm looking at my great NASA partner up there, Freeze-dried technology is an old technology from the early Apollo era. In the center of the screen is our good friend, Dr. Catherine Nakalibi from the University of Maryland. Now, she administers the NASA Harvest program. And what NASA Harvest program is it's designed to help farmers in Africa and other communities like in South America to use science, space science application to increase their crop yields. And here she is in this picture holding the 2020 African Food Prize for her work helping African farmers use space science applications. And then on the far picture, we have, this is at Kennedy Space Center, and this is looking at vertical farming. You know, as we go into space, we're not going to be able to grow crops outside. We're going to have to grow them indoors, climate controlled, reduced water, measured lighting, artificial intelligence, robotics. But you know what else we can do? We can use that same technology right here on Earth to increase food production closer to population centers, reducing the carbon footprint of moving food around the planet, and also helping us feed a hungry planet. Another sustainable development goal that I think is really important is water, clean water. So on this slide, I have my good friend Lumbi Malambo. Now, Lumbi is the UN ambassador for clean water and sanitation. When she was growing up in Africa, she would have to walk 4 to 10 miles one way to get water for her family. And there are girls and women in Africa who still have to do that. This can prevent them from going to school or getting jobs. The other thing is, after they collect that water, it may be contaminated. So it makes them and their animals and their families sick. But you know what? NASA has been using technology from the International Space Station to test water and purify it for more than 20 years, because we as humanity have been living in space for more than 20 years. Every drop of water in the International Space Station is recycled, which means it goes through a filtration system, and then it's tested for purity. That technology has now been tech transferred, which means a commercial company has now created that product. Some of you can go to camping stores, or we have in the US REI, and you can purchase a canister so you can go out hiking, scoop up water, it gets filtered, and now you don't have to pack with your water with you. This same technology has been commercialized right here on Earth, and this technology can be used to help people like Lumbi drill boreholes close to villages, because if they can drill a borehole, test the water, ensure it's safe, now girls and women can only have to walk 30 minutes one way to get water for their family. So now they can get jobs and they can go to school. So that one sustainable development goal of clean water solves many of the other sustainable development goals, like poverty, gender equality, quality education. That one sustainable development goal solves several others. So the last sustainable development goal we'll kind of talk about is clean energy, affordable energy. We know that we have in addition to food and water, we need energy production. We're in Canada. It's already cold here. They just said, you know, this is August 26th and fall is on the way. So for our friends around the world in Ecuador and Morocco, it's cold here. And so we need energy. It's something we need to do. So what are we doing to look at new energy solutions? Well, NASA is doing some great programs to increase the efficiency of solar panels. So we all know what solar panels are, but on Mars, solar panels can get covered with dust because there are storms on that planet that can last for months that could cover great regions of the planet. And there's nobody to go out there and clean them. And so NASA is looking at creating more efficient solar panels and solar panels that are self-cleaning, that actually vibrate to help clean that dust off. Because if those solar panels get dusty, it reduces the efficiency and eventually that technology will die because it can't get recharged. How many of us think that solar panels that are self-cleaning could be used right here on planet Earth? Absolutely. We got some places that get dust storms. We got great solar arrays going in, not only in the US, but in the Middle East and around the world, that nobody wants to go out and clean all those solar panels. There are also countries that are launching solar arrays into space to harness the sun's energy and beam that down to Earth. So those are just some of the forms of energy that are being looked at that are clean, that can help solve some of our energy challenges. So what I wanted to share with you is the great people who are making these things happen. In addition to NASA, DARPA, the governments around the world are entrepreneurs. Many of you are entrepreneurs in this room. And so if you're interested in learning more about how you could partner with NASA or the European Space Agency or the Japanese Space Agency, you can go to their websites, because what they have is a tech transfer program. So NASA has thousands of patents that are waiting to be commercialized. And what they're looking for is innovators and entrepreneurs that want to go look at all those technology patents, whether it's agriculture, healthcare, communications, energy solutions, apply for the patent. You could even try to apply for a grant to bring that technology to market to help solve our challenges right here on Earth. So what I'm going to do is we're going to show one more video, and then we'll finish on. So I'm going to show you again a little more about that amazing space technology that's from the space program that's part of our everyday lives. So now the big question is, you're probably saying, great, how do I get in the space industry? Do I need to work for NASA? You could, but what I'd really like to do is let's highlight the differences from the Apollo era to where we are today, which is the Artemis era. And I can hear the kids out here, they're the Artemis generation. They're here today to learn how they're going to be the future leaders in the space industry. So we talked a little about space. We're thinking about astronauts and rockets, but what I'm highlighting up here are all the technologies that are part of the cutting edge technologies, like amazing entrepreneurs like Robert and Jason Michaudar, because we talked about biotechnologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, agriculture, quantum. Are any of the mining, right? Are any of those technologies things you're interested in? Geology, right? Those are also space technologies. If you're interested in those, or you want to learn more about those, there is an avenue for you to be part of space. That's right, Mike, you're already in the space industry and you don't know it. These are the different economic sectors that exist. And there's certainly an economic sector over here that says space. It's on the slide. And that's your rocket scientists, and that's NASA. But look at the other economic sectors: agriculture, healthcare, education, right? Public safety, transportation. Those are all economic sectors. They're all dependent on space technology. Think of space technology as the roads that are throughout the world. They've created the infrastructure to unlock innovation and entrepreneurship and allow you to become entrepreneurs and commercialize technology. So let's think about that workforce. We just heard the kids go by, the Artemis generation. So let's look at the generations. So the Apollo era. So the Apollo era was a space race, right? A space race between two nations, primarily government workers, and we love our government workers, but primarily government workers, male STEM professionals, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So this is the launch that took place, 1969. There is one woman in that room. Let's look at today's space industry and what does the workforce look like? Well, you're looking at multiple regions. I mean, we have our representative, Dr. Sharif from ISESCO, 54 member countries. We have the Organization of American States, 34 member countries. You have the African Union, 54 member countries. There are a lot of organizations in space. As a matter of fact, there are 92 countries operating in space now. The 1960s, 2 nations, now 92 nations are operating in space, and many more want to be part of the space industry. We're looking at multi-generational. So we have some aging workforce. And then we have, like I said, the Artemis generation is right here looking to become part of the future workforce, and not the workforce. They want to be the future leaders. They are the future leaders of our space industry. And multi-gender, right? And so here's a good quote from my friend Ruvimbo Samanga. She's a space lawyer from Zimbabwe, and she talks about it was challenging to get into the space industry. A space lawyer from Zimbabwe, Africa, right? But she's in the space industry now. We're talking about a diversity of skills. So I still need those STEM professionals, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But we also need manufacturing. We saw during COVID how dependent we are on our supply chain, manufactured. And in the US, we're going to be short 2 million workers by 2025 in manufacturing, technicians. Right? So when we think about careers in the space industry, it's now open to all, high school graduate to PhD and everything in between, right? I need people to come out of high school. There's internships, entrepreneurship opportunities. Come into the space industry. You can be an astronaut to an artist. So in this picture is Dr. Signe Proctor. So she was one of the SpaceX astronauts, flew the shuttle. But you can also see we need artists. We need people who want to inspire us to come into the space industry. How many of us look at the gadgets we have today and think, man, this was something that was on Star Trek, right? We also need teachers and technicians, investors, entrepreneurs, innovators. The sky is no longer the limit if you want to be in the space industry. So we're going to look at a few careers that are in the space industry because we have the Artemis generation watching us today, and this is going to give you an idea of what those 50 careers are going to be like for you. Oh, that did work. About 5 more minutes. About 5 more minutes, is that okay? Well, I did say, I already said MDA and Lockheed already. So there's a lot of opportunity. Did you see a career you want to be? Did it inspire someone to say, I could do that? I could be part of the space industry? I'm already part of the space industry. So what I'm going to do is give you a quick 5-step, how do you get into the space industry with a workforce development roadmap. So it's about awareness, access, training, connecting, and mentoring. So the first step is what we're doing today. It's about building awareness that you can be part of the space industry. So I want to thank Stardust Festival, Jason, as well as all the amazing sponsors, the City of Timmins, the First Nations, and everyone who has made today's event possible, because this is building awareness that you can be part of the space industry. Now, once you have awareness, you need to find an access point. Is that, our earlier speaker talked about, are there clubs you can join? Are there incubators? If you're an entrepreneur like Jason, is there an incubator you can join? Could you go to that NASA Tech Transfer Office and apply for a patent and get a grant to commercialize technology? So what you need to do is start looking for that access point to come into the space industry. Then you may need training, right? High school graduate to PhD. If you want to be a rocket scientist or an astronaut, you're probably going to need to lean closer to the PhD. But maybe you want, again, that internship, fellowship to come into the space industry another way. And for those of you who may be thinking, well, I'm too old to come into the space industry, right? I already had a career. You can be part of the space industry. I know an amazing woman. She was in the mining and gas industry, and she decided she wanted to come into the space industry. So she started networking and building relations in the space industry, volunteering for things, doing that informal training. And now she was in the space industry 2 years, and she became a chief operating officer for a startup company. So it doesn't matter your age. If you want to be part of the space industry, there's a pathway for you. Building those relationships. Again, like I said, the woman who transitioned out of oil and gas came into the space industry. She started networking with Space Foundation, Space Generation Advisory Council, the Colorado Space Coalition. She started going to events and meeting people and building those relationships that helped her find those opportunities. And so for the young people in the audience today, join those rocket clubs, join those space clubs, join the chemistry club, check out Space Generation Advisory Council. Again, here's our good friend Ruvimbo from Africa. Again, a space lawyer from Zimbabwe, how she talked about building those networks that helped her find her path into the space industry. And that last step is mentoring. If you can find a mentor, many times they can help you overcome many of the challenges that lay in getting into the space industry. And there are some great mentoring programs. I already talked about Space Generation Advisory Council, but there's also Women Tech Network and the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, Space for Women. Now, those two programs, Space for Women and Women Tech Network, it says women in their title, but they're open to women and men to be proteges as well as mentors. So check them out, because for those of you who want to mentor and help someone else come into the space industry, we need you. And for those of you who need a mentor, men or women, you can check them out, because many times those mentors will help expedite your journey. So what I'd like to do is we're going to wrap up there. But for those of you who are coming to the gala tonight from 6 to 9 at the Dante Club, I'll be doing another presentation there where I'm going to talk about the future of the space industry, leadership opportunities, and how you're already global transformational leaders. So we look forward to seeing you, and if our online guests can join us virtually at the Dante Club tonight, 6 to 9, for our gala. We'll also, Space Foundation will be signing our partnership agreement with Stardust Festival there. So we hope you'll participate in that. And then from 9 to 1, we'll be celebrating Yuri's Night, which is the celebration of the first man in orbit. So we look forward to seeing you there. And until then, I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.
All right. Once again, a big round of applause, Kelly Brunswick, the COO of the Space Foundation, all the way from Colorado Springs here on this weekend. Amazing speakers, it's such a big treat to be a part of the Stardust Festival for the first time ever here in Timmins.
Now, Kinsman, I'm starting to become a believer now. Now, you told me they faked the landing on the moon, but I'm seeing evidence to prove otherwise. You led me down the wrong path. I understand, right? It's the Battle of the Stevens coming up. Is that Stephen Smith? A big battle?
That's right. They always say it's the most common name on the planet, but yes, we do have two with Steve, Steve and a Steven. And the next keynote speaker, we're going to be introduced with Steve Smith, the Director of Flight Sciences and Human Integration at Blue Origin, to take the stand. Let's make a big round of applause.
He's getting his IT set there, Kinsman, so now you're gonna have to do 47 minutes of space stand-up. You have it, or what? Tell him what you were, tell him that space joke you told me.
Beam me up, Scotty.
Oh, no, that is very weak, but, beam me up. You're gonna say beam me up, Scotty.
With the Klingons.
With the
over here.
Klingons there? Okay, you're trying to get into their group now, right? You're trying to make up your Star Wars past? Maybe, would Mark look good in a Klingon, he has the beard, not the knowledge, but the beard's the. I'm thinking you're not in yet there, kids. But, you know,
not a part of the Klingons
but now that you're a big part of the Stardust Festival, I think you made a good step forward. I believe we're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, here's the young gentleman to the stage. We're gonna get him mic'd up.
So once again, let's put a big round of applause together for Steve Smith, Director of Flight Sciences and Human Integration at Blue Origin.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. So you heard from the other Steve Smith earlier today. There's two of us. So you can tell us apart because he wears a bow tie. I do not. And I believe Steve Smith is right after me. I realize where I am. I am between you and him, so I'll make this short because we definitely want to hear from him. Okay, so I am Steve Smith with Blue Origin. And just a little familiarization with Blue Origin. Our vision is millions of people living and working in space. Shelley gave a great presentation about what it's going to take to get there, and that's what we're working on. So think about everybody you know living in space, millions of people, or the city of Toronto, or the city of New York in space. Imagine what that's going to be like. And where we are right now is we're building the infrastructure. So think about the city of Toronto. You have to have roads and highways and trains and planes in and out of there to get the people in and out and the goods you buy and the food you need. So that's what we're working on right now at Blue Origins. We're building those highways. And just an overview of some of the programs to get there. Right now we have the New Shepard program that is a rocket that is flying out of West Texas today. It is about an 11-minute flight, and we have astronauts that go up, and you get a few minutes of weightlessness, and then you come back down. And the reason we're doing that is we're learning how to launch. Right now we're launching every couple months. What if we can launch every couple weeks? Or what if we can launch several times in a week? What if we can launch several times during a day? So that's what we're doing, is we're learning how to increase the availability of launches and to increase access to space. Then there's our New Glenn program. There's a rocket that we're building now in Florida. It's scheduled to launch next year, 2024, less than a year. Very exciting. This is a massive capability. This rocket, just the fairing on top that carries the cargo is 7 stories high. It can hold 3 school buses. So it gives you an idea of how big this rocket is, and that's the system that's going to put the stuff into space. So all the materials we need, all the different spaceships or spacecraft that we need to go to Mars or to the moon or wherever we're going is going to be on the New Glenn program. We also do engines at Blue Origin. We do our own engines. In fact, what I hear is that Blue Origin, really, we started with engines because we needed to work on this technology. We've had rocket engines for decades, but what's new nowadays is that if we're trying to lower the cost of space, we have to make engines that can be reused over and over and over again. And so those are the technologies that we're developing and testing, the BE3, the BE4, and here you see we're testing that in Texas. And then we're going to the moon. So very excited about that. We're a part of the SLD program, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of sending humans back to the moon. So very excited about that. So Jason, thank you for having me. Jason asked me to share how did I get here? How did I get to the point where I'm going to send people to the moon, or I'm going to work on a program that sends people to the moon? What's my story? What's the path that I followed? Well, I don't mean to flex on you, Steve, but I realized that if I was going to be successful in the space industry, I need to be a sharp dresser. So at age 3, I got my first bow tie. All right, so you're not the only Steve Smith with a bow tie anymore. So, I was a kid. I grew up in Missouri, and you must think, well, if you're in the space industry now, you were raised in a family of scientists and engineers, or you're the son of a parent that was a physics professor at MIT. I'll tell you that was the exact opposite for me. Okay, my family's very accomplished, but not in STEM. My dad spent 40 years as a music teacher in high school. My mom worked at a dentist office. Okay, well, our extended family then. My extended family are poets, they're artists, lots of teachers, lots of musicians. I have 2 authors in my family who wrote books on theology. Nobody in my family did science or technology or engineering. So I tell people I'm kind of the black sheep. Spits out Steve, and it's like Steve is not musical. He's not, inclined like that. He's, I came from that family, but that's not how I ended up. So surely I was in science clubs and math clubs and all that. And actually, no, I was a band kid. That was the family I grew up in, right? So this picture of me and my sister, we were in a marching band together in high school. I sang choir at church. I was in the theater at school. I was into the fine arts. My family was in the fine arts. And so, a little different than, the background that you think you would need to get into space. But what that taught me, growing up in a family like that, is that as humans, we tell stories. We tell stories through obviously talking to each other. Well, we tell stories to each other through music, through song, through art, architecture, and that's what it taught me growing up. So how did I get into space? Well, I think a common way that a lot of people get into space is get excited about airplanes, and that was for me. My granddad was a preacher in Illinois, and he would fly from little town to little town in a Cessna Cardinal 180 RG. And I was absolutely fascinated with this airplane. And every time I'd go visit him, he'd take me up, we'd fly around, and all these instruments and the roar of the engine and the rush of the air, and we go zooming down the runway and take off and look down, and there's my house, and so that's just fascinating to me. And I was just so enthralled with this device, and that's what got me started and excited about aerospace. So it came time to go to university, and of course my family, their experience and their context was going to music or teaching. And that was not the path I wanted to take. I wanted to know how airplanes work. How could I be part of airplanes? So I went to engineering school, got my aerospace degree, and then right out of school, I started with a company called Flight Safety, where we built high-end flight simulators to train pilots how to fly. And I spent 25 years in this industry working in engineering. My expertise was helicopters, worked with a lot of commercial pilots, Air Force pilots, spent a lot of time with the Air Force, worked with the Canadian Royal Air Force here in Portage la Prairie, Manitoba, training helicopter pilots. Fascinating career. These are simulators that are really high fidelity, exact replicas of the cockpits with virtual reality and motion, very realistic. And one thing I learned in my career is I was an engineer, and I would work so hard to make these really realistic, high-fidelity flight simulators. And then what I learned is that it didn't matter how good the flight simulator is. If you put a person in there and let them just fly that simulator and work on it, it doesn't make them a pilot. Now, they could spend hours in there flying this flight simulator. They'd come out and they'd have a lot of fun, and oh yeah, that was great, but they're not going to be a pilot. What I learned is that to become a pilot, they needed another human. They had to have the connection of a flight instructor in there that could then tell the story of how to become a pilot and to show them how to become a pilot. And my creation, as proud as I was of it, all it was a prop in the connection of the humans telling the story one to the other. So that was a great perspective for me, that it was about the human connection there. So what do I do now? So Director of Flight Sciences and Human Integration. I'm leading an organization within Blue Origin where we're developing a lot of the key technologies used in all the programs I just mentioned. I'm leading a team that has developed the navigation systems for the autonomous and the autonomy systems for the rockets. I'm leading a team that is working on testing and R&D for the new ideation of new technologies. Some of those technologies we will need in order to get to the moon. Hydrogen is one of them. So to get to the moon, we're going to be using hydrogen. How do we do that? How do we keep it cold as we're traveling through space? And so these are a lot of core technologies that we're developing. I have engineers working on aerodynamics, hypersonics. How do we get fuel from one place to another in the rocket systems? I also have a human integration team. So all of this is for humans. Again, we've got to get the humans from here to in space, millions of people living and working in space. And so I have a team called Human Integration, and that's what they're working on. What are the challenges? What are the things that humans need to be successful and to survive and to be happy in space? Okay, so we're building this highway to space. What do we need? Who do we need? Well, we've already mentioned a couple times today. We need the scientists. We need the people doing the research and understanding and increase our awareness and understanding of new technologies. That we then need engineers to use those technologies to develop the things that we need to get to the moon, to space. We also need technicians today. So a lot of people at Blue Origin that are building the rockets and building the test stands to test the rockets, they have a mechanical aptitude. And so we really look for those people to help us build these things. A lot of them, I know they build race cars on the weekend. So during the day, they build rockets. And then in the evenings, on the weekends, they go home in the garage and they're building their race cars. A lot of the same skills, same tools, welding, manufacturing, things like that. So that's today. That's to build the highway, the infrastructure to get there. What do we need tomorrow, though? And this is where I'm going to deviate a little bit from the script, all right? We're living, millions of people living and working in space. What kind of help do we need up there? Well, I tell you, my answer changes, okay? Yes, we still need the scientists, and we still engineers, we still need technicians. But when we're actually living in space, we need all the jobs that we have here on Earth, but we now also have to have them in space. These are the things we need to be human. We need actors and actresses. We need musicians. We need dentists. We need firefighters. So everything that you are thinking about that you want to do here on Earth, think about it also in space. So there's not just STEM anymore. So these are very exciting opportunities. And how do we do sports? We have football here on Earth. How are we going to do football in space? Maybe somebody on this weekend is going to be the person that invents space football. All right. Okay. So I am here at Blue Origin, and we are thinking about our next generation. We have an organization within Blue called Club for the Future, where we're looking to inspire the next generation, the generation that is actually going to live in space. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be the generation that lives in space, but the next generation probably will be living in space. And so we have a program called, I'll play this video here, Club for the Future, Fly a Postcard to Space. Doesn't look like there's sound. That's okay, we don't need sound. But I've got great sound here on my laptop. That didn't help though. But yeah, we can see the video. That's our New Shepard flying to space. And on that New Shepard, we have postcards. And so whatever inspires you, write it on the back, draw a picture, put stickers on it, whatever you're thinking about is space. Fill out one of these postcards. I have it in the discovery room. Anything that you're thinking about or dreaming about in space, put it on the postcard. On the front, you put your name and your address, and you give it back to me. Actually, I have a blue post office box in that discovery room. So after you fill out your card and you color it and put your thoughts on it, put it in that blue post office box. That'll get to me. I will take it back to Blue Origin, and on our next flight, We'll put it on the rocket. We'll blast it up into space. It'll be in space for several minutes, come back down, and we'll stamp it and say, this has been in space, and then we mail it back to you. And then you have something that is yours, personalized to you, that has been to space and back to your hands. So that's all I have for today. I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts if anybody has those. No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, of course. Take that off. Presentation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Steve Smith, Director of Flight Sciences and Human Integration at Blue Origin, joining us here for the Stardust Festival this week. And again, you heard it from Steve himself. It's the battle of the Steve Smiths. Next up to the podium, another amazing keynote speaker here during the morning and our grand opening celebrations here. Stephen Smith, he's the Senior Project Coordinator for NASA's Micro G Next Challenge. And we're just going to let him take his coat off, and we're going to find out all about this NASA Micro G Next Challenge in just a few minutes. In the meantime, again, welcome each and every one of you from afar as we enjoy all this week's festivities with the Stardust Festival here for the first time ever in 2023 in the city of Timmins. I think Steve's just getting things ironed out, and we'll bring him to the podium momentarily.
We should say, Kinsman, you know, if you want to get your, Santa Claus always treats us really well. But if you're looking for an early Christmas gift, especially the kids who are going to be registering on Eventbrite, and we're talking to a lot of the folks listening to the stream at home, there's going to be a draw for a Nintendo Switch.
A Nintendo Switch.
How do you like that?
Yes.
Thanks for buying it for everyone, kids. I didn't realize that you had so much money in your pockets.
No, that's what happens when Klump leaves his credit card on the table. That's what happens there. Jason says, what do you want to give away? And I said, here, Klump's going to put this out there. But yes, put yourself in for that draw and a chance to win the Nintendo Switch. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah, the sponsors are up on the screen, Kinsman.
Yes, they are. Again, each and every one of them is amazing. From MDA to Cote Gold, Lockheed Martin, House N, Hen number 8. We've got Tisdale Bus Lines, NOA also in here, Northern College, the Space Foundation, NASA, Cote Gold. What do we have here? We have MPLH Drilling. In here as well. Big thanks to Northern College, Science North, and again, Space Salsa. Also, some of the amazing sponsors here. And again, if you are one of the big, amazing sponsors on this screen, let's give a big round of applause to each and every one of them for helping us out and for putting on the Stardust Festival this week, 2023. So we have all sorts of amazing guests and presentations and speakers from all over the planet here today. And again, for the first time in Timmins history, the first time that the Stardust Festival is underway in the city of Timmins. We want to wish everybody, and hopefully everybody had safe travels getting here and will enjoy their week's accommodations here in the city of Timmins. Round of applause. Who is looking forward to a big gala tonight, the Dante Club. Dante Club, if you haven't been, again, one of the bucket list items here in the city of Timmins is you must eat at the Porcupine Dante Club. So you guys and gals are in for a great treat here. Again, one of the big staples here in our fine city. And again, the gala happening tonight. And again, a nice Nintendo Switch up for grabs. Again, don't forget to fill out the name and your ballots to win that. A chance to win that amazing prize. And again, the launches. Who's looking forward to the big launches at the Matagami First Nation happening this week? And again, if you're watching this from afar, when you're thinking little mini rockets, no, these rockets are, you know, if you walk across the street to the, you know, the Sportsplex, one of the rockets easily, you know, 60 feet in length. And again, they're going to be trying to out-rocket the other teams. Who's going to have the best rocket? And again, we'll put these teams to the test. And again, if you're going down to the Matagami First Nation, this week, make sure you you know, check out one of these amazing launch spectacular events. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Can I make an announcement?
Yes, we've got another amazing announcement here at the podium.
Hello, I'm Dr. Elise McIntyre, staff scientist for Space Place and the Planetarium at Science North. And today I have brought an inflatable planetarium with me. We were supposed to be in the Discovery space, but it is too incredibly massive. So we will be setting it up across the street over where Launch Canada has an amazing career fair going on, so many cool rockets. Hopefully after lunch, we will have the planetarium set up and you're welcome to come for shows and we'll keep it going tomorrow as well.
All right. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Are we ready to rock and roll, or should we say rocket and roll? Probably more accustomed here to the Stardust Festival. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next podium as our next keynote speaker, Stephen Smith, Senior Project Coordinator with NASA's Micro G Next Challenge.
Much. So sorry. So, how you doing? All right. It's the unveiling student potential. So I'm working with my NASA computer, which means it won't let me download anything to the computer, especially, you know, from foreigners. So sorry about that. So this is my first time out of the country as a non-military person. So this was my first like commercial using my passport and everything. And I'll tell you, it's been really interesting. I'm struggling a little with the Canadian accent. Sometimes it's like you're not even speaking English. It's weird. That one was subtle. I had to wait for it. So my name is Stephen Smith. I'm going to share a little bit with you about my background. My understanding coming into this was we were going to be speaking mostly to students and trying to inspire them. So that's a little bit more what this is. So think of yourselves as students again. And thinking about what might be next, but I'm going to share a little bit of my story, a little bit of the NASA story. We are right now, as you mentioned earlier, this is the Artemis generation. And I have the great honor and privilege of actually working at the Johnson Space Center, and I have gotten to know several of the people who worked on previous missions. So there are 3 of us at NASA that have the same birthday, although I will say very different years. So my friend Gene Krantz, who you may be familiar with, he was the flight director for all of the missions that the Apollo took. In the movie Apollo 13, that's the guy with the vest and the cool haircut. And he is almost like a caricature of a human being. It's really quite interesting. I don't know if you remember or have seen the newsreels from way back when. They would have before the movies that came on, the Mr. and Mrs. America. He sounds like that. Like that is his voice over those. So weird. And then Norm Chaffee is a chemical engineer, developed the small rockets that steered the Apollo missions and stuff. We all have the same birthday. And I get to hang out with them. So on our birthday, we all have lunch together. And so the first year, I just sat like a schoolgirl. I was just like, say more things. It's awesome. And the stories, it was like being on the Discovery Channel. The next year, we went to a restaurant that had alcohol. The stories got so much better. So I'm going to share a little with you about myself, about NASA. But one thing they kept telling me is, because I'm asking all these questions about NASA in the past, and they kept reminding me that you're part of NASA now. So we are part of the Artemis missions. So the Apollo missions were cool, they were great, they were fun, but these are a whole new set of missions. And we're part of that now, so kind of pay attention around you because someday you get to be the person on the other side of the table with someone schoolgirling you. Is this an actual thing? Am I making this up? Oh, cool. So, again, Apollo missions. This is a picture of Apollo 8. This was December 24th, 1968. As we came around the moon, we took a photograph, and this photograph you can point directly back to for the Environmental Protection Agency or the ideas of sustainability. This was the first time we had seen ourselves from another perspective. And this helped us to realize that we're just on this raft in the middle of nothing. And all the resources that we have on here are the resources that we have, period. We're going to be changing that a little bit, doing some mining on some other places and getting resources from other folks. But these Apollo missions were amazing and they changed the way we saw ourselves. But now we're going into another era, and that's the Artemis. I did
At NASA, we have always answered the innate call to go.
We are going to stay.
Proving that humanity
Can live on the moon
Mars, and other worlds.
and share the wonders of the solar system with all.
Our story is one of people, all those who made this journey possible.
From advocates across communities to companies across industries to countries around the world.
We achieve this collective endeavor. Our efforts create impact for all.
Technologies that are revolutionaries industry.
And jobs that bring prosperity to people. Discoveries from space.
Anything that we live on Earth is getting. And those from the moon will create a better future for generations to come. But to do that,
We must go.
my name is Roger Chari.
Feel American. I'm Christina Cook.
NASA astronaut Joe Hama.
Jessica Lear.
Woody Goldberg.
And Orlando. Stephanie Wilson.
Tommy Franklin.
Nicole Mayo.
Victor Gordon.
Jessica Watkins. Jasmine Morelli.
Scott Timothy.
This is what we do. This is what we will do.
Let's go.
We got to learn to learn how to live on other planets.
For the benefit of all.
That's the only one with sound. So Artemis is about innovation. Artemis is about what's next. But Artemis is also about representation. So Artemis is about having astronauts, having engineers that look like not just me, but look like us. So we have male, female, we have Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, Persian specifically. We have openly LGBTQ. However you define yourself, there is somebody in the Artemis program that looks like you, that's from where you're from, that has your background, and that's on purpose. We are very specifically landing the first woman and first person of color on the moon and bringing them back safely. And the point of that isn't the moon, the point of that is Mars. The point of Artemis is also to learn how to live on a planetary body that is not Earth. We're doing that because the moon is a little bit closer. So if you imagine that the Earth is a basketball, I'm all out of your shots, aren't I? I'm so sorry, I realized. Try to film an ADHD guy. Keep up. Anyway, so if you imagine the Earth is the size of a basketball, then the moon becomes about the size of a tennis ball or a person's fist. Other Steve Smith, would you do me a giant favor? And just hold your fist up in solidarity with Steve Smith. Thank you so much. So his fist is the moon. So if the Earth is a basketball, it's about 25 feet. So this is about the distance from the Earth in this scale. Thank you so much. In this same scale, Mars is about the size of a cantaloupe. By the way, did you know why the melon had to have a really big wedding and invite one? Cantaloupe. So I had my dad joke loading socks on yesterday. But that cantaloupe would be at a grocery store that's 4 miles from where we are right now at that scale. 2 days to get to Thing 2 up here. To get to Mars, it's 6 to 9 months. And then Mars and Earth aren't holding hands and skipping merrily around the sun. They're in very different orbits. So I have to wait 18 months on or around Mars before I can come back. So if you do that math in your head really quickly, that's a 2.5 to 3 year trip that we have to keep astronauts healthy and alive and focused and fed and all of those things. So we are not ready yet for that trip. So what that means is that the foot that leaves the first footprint on Mars is not currently attached to someone in the space industry right now or in NASA right now. It's attached to a student somewhere amongst us right now. So we are preparing not for ourselves, and there's a wonderful First Nations idea that we are not, the Earth isn't ours, that we're borrowing it from our children. So we are making this preparations, we are doing this work, not for ourselves, because we're not the ones who are going to benefit from this. It's going to be our children and our children's children. So NASA and the space industry in general, I think, are a good way to do a lot of this work because space is universal. It's a universe. Okay, so we have these shared experiences. Every culture around the world has stories about the constellations, for example, because we all look up and we're all inspired by what we see. And the stories that we tell a lot about ourselves. So some interesting things that I found over the years, for example, the Aboriginal people in Australia, their stories about the constellations, they don't draw lines between the points the way we do. They actually look at the negative space like in the Milky Way and different places like that, and it's the negative space that makes the shapes for them. So their stories, of course, about koalas and wallabies and kangaroos and things that they have and they've seen, but they're not the outline, it's the negative space. I don't know, I just think that's fascinating. We're getting ready to have not 1, but 2 solar eclipses that are gonna be able to be seen very close to where you are, super close to where I am. You see where the X kind of meets there in the middle? So that's where I live in Texas. So I get to see all of them. It's really great. So we're having an annular eclipse, which means that the moon is a little too close to completely cover it. So you're going to get a halo instead. So don't look directly at that. Write that down somewhere. And then in April, we have a full and complete solar eclipse. And I would say, if you ever have the opportunity to go see one, it's quite a thing. And I highly recommend it. Go ahead. NASA has 10 centers across the country of the United States. A lot of people don't know that. They know about Houston because we're in all the movies. Houston have a problem. They know about Florida because that's where we launch from. Do you know why we launch from Florida specifically? No? What's surrounding most of Florida? Water. So water turns out to be really handy to kind of land in on purpose or not. Why else? Oh, you're going to say the water? Okay. It's very near the equator. It turns out the equator is actually turning faster than the rest of the planet because it's wider. Distance over time is velocity. So we actually launch in the direction the Earth is turning from near the equator. It gives us a little extra boost. We can use less fuel. It has typically good weather most of the year, so we get lots of good launch dates. And also, if something goes wrong, most of the people in Florida are retired or awful, so it's fine. So I felt safe that there was nobody in Florida, so I could make fun of it. We have 3 centers in California, and each of our centers does a little something different. So JPL is very heavily engineering based and things like that. We have an aviation based one in Edwards Air Force Base, which is more in the desert kind of thing. Then we have Ames, which is near San Francisco. They do a lot of the hard sciences, a lot of biology there. They have a really cool dirigible hangar that is so big it has its own weather system inside the hangar, which is pretty cool. So it will rain inside there. I think that's really neat. As we go down and across, we have ones in Alabama, Mississippi. Alabama is where the space camp is. And I always warn parents before you send your kids to space camp. I went in the 7th grade, and this is what can happen, so you've been warned. As we go up, we have Maryland and Virginia. They do, again, a lot of the hard science kind of stuff. We have our headquarters in Washington, D.C., where all good things go to die. And then we have one up in Ohio as well. So we're all over the country. We're about 60,000 people strong. And out of those 60,000 people, 44 are astronauts. So everybody at NASA does something else. And it's not all engineers. I was a classroom teacher for 20 years. We have photographers. We have video game designers who help us design simulations. We have nutritionists. We have exercise physiologists, kind of whatever. We have the propaganda films that we have are all made by NASA employees. So we have TV producers, we have musicians, we have all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, we're good at propaganda, I'm just saying. The next one. We have lots of tools, and those are available for anyone who has the interwebs. It's all open source. So we have My NASA Data. So if you're a math teacher or a math nerd and you just want to see, this is all of the Earth-facing satellites dumping their data in there. We have pre-made lesson plans for teachers, but we also have just raw data that you can use if you're looking at stuff. Go to the next one. We have ways to get involved. So GLOBE is an international partnership, and it's an opportunity for students to do Earth science research. So if you want to do something that's really specific to your area, you put in your protocols in there, you put your research in there, and then other students from all over the world can follow your protocols, adding their information, and you get this global reach in your research, and then your students can present that research. We have lots of really cool opportunities for them to do that. Or if you just want to follow someone else's and jump in their research and do that, you can do that as well. And then for the young kids, we have School, which is Student Cloud Observations Online. It's a very low-tech, you go out there with your iPad, and it actually has you look up north, south, east, west. You're measuring the clouds for that particular time. We then use that information, helping it add to our satellite data looking down. It's pretty cool. So your students can literally be a part of what we're doing. We have lots of resources for ethnic cultures. So we respect the stories that came before us. So as people looked up and experienced the stars, their experience was valid. And so we look at that and add in. We have a really cool thing for planetariums where your students make up a constellation of their own and tell their own story. And then they can go in with the markers and mark up the thing, and you turn off the lights and they can see their constellations. We have a way that you can actually build a planetarium just using tarp material, and we'll poke holes in it to get little lights through it. It's pretty cool. And of course, like I said before, we encourage careers for everybody. So whatever you're particularly nerdy about, whether that's engineering or not, I promise you, we have a space for all nerds of all flavors at NASA. We're excited. So I'm going to tell you my story a little bit, because everybody has a story, and so I'll share you with mine real quickly. So, recognize anyone? So do you know who this is? Disney nerds? That is Flynn Rider. Now, here's a real nerdy thing. What's his real name? Eugene. So Flynn sort of remade his story. Eugene Fitzherbert. And they never got his nose right. Anyway, so I kind of did the same thing when I was in school. So this was me in high school. Now, people of a certain age, I might need a little backup. This is 1986. The mullet was cool. I do have to say, though, the turtleneck and chains probably a little douchey, even for them. But, you know, we do what we can. So I was, actually go back one, I'm so sorry. So I was a straight A student. I was in all the honors and gifted and advanced classes, all that kind of stuff. Everything was going swimmingly until I was about 14, 15 years old. My stepfather ended up getting melanoma, a cancer on his back. We found it in June, July-ish, and by February, it had just eaten. It was completely gone. So my mom didn't handle that well. I was a 14, 15-year-old kid when he passed away, and you may have noticed, am a lot. I have a brother who's 10 years younger than me, so she had a 4-year-old and a 14-year-old, and one of whom was a lot. So she didn't handle that well. Things went sideways pretty quickly, and this became not only my car, but this became where I lived. It was safer to be there than it was to be at home. So I am an adult survivor of childhood abuse. It really got so bad at home that it was just safer to be somewhere else. No one in my school system asked the questions they should have asked. They didn't say, well, why did this grade A student who was doing so well before suddenly stop showing up? What's going on? Instead, they treated me like a behavior problem, and they just started writing me up, and eventually I got kicked out of school before I was able to finish. So I was 17 years old, no GED, no high school diploma, and no real prospects on what to do. I was going to go in the Air Force. The Air Force will only take you if you have a high school diploma. So at that point, even if I'd gotten my equivalency, I couldn't have gotten the Air Force. The Navy, however, has very low standards, much like my wife, thank God. So I was able to go in with no GED, anything. I got my GED afterwards. And I subsequently, actually go to the next one. I subsequently parlayed that, used the military to get my education, and now I have 5 college degrees, and I work for NASA. Now, I have to pause for... Thank you. And I always tell people when we get to the 5-degree part, I'm like, don't be impressed by that. It just means I really like student loans. I do have to acknowledge that nothing about how I look, my gender, my ethnicity, who I love, no part of that made any part of my journey harder. And that's in fact what privilege is. So it's not about being handed things, it's just about not having extra burdens as you go along. So this is me. I'm kind of in the middle there. You always just look for the eyebrows. It is actually just a testament to how much my wife loves me that I can use the plural now. Eyebrows. Previously, I looked like Bert from Sesame Street. It was kind of a thing. Okay. After I came out of the military, which by the way, I worked with explosives when I was in the military, because I was 17 years old. I'm really good at standardized tests. That's kind of my superpower. So when I took the test, which is called the ASVAB, which is seeing what your vocational aptitude is, I scored a 98. So I could do anything I wanted to. They said, what do you want to do? And I said, as every 17-year-old boy in the world would, I want to blow things up. So I did that. When I came out of the military, it turned out there wasn't a lot of call for that. So I kind of floated for a while. I did a lot of different things. I worked for ADT Security, installing security alarm systems. I was a bouncer because I'm kind of big. I was a bouncer for a strip club for a while. And don't listen to that, kids. Anyway, eventually, though, someone told me, I think you're a teacher. So when I was in the military, I actually was a quality assurance safety observer, and I taught other people how to safely handle the explosives. That always just kind of ended up being my path. So I became a teacher, and I was a classroom teacher for 20 years. And I taught in the schools that no one else wanted to teach in because they were all the ones that had no resources. For the first 12 years of my career, I was teaching inclusion classes, so I had special ed kids and regular ed kids in my class together. And my kids outscored the gifted and talented students every year. So after about 12 years of that, the other schools started coming by and they were like, hey, want to come play with our kids? So my last 8 years, I was headhunted into schools, and I've taught in Washington State, I taught in New Jersey, ended up landing in Georgia. And in Georgia, I went to a science teachers conference, and there was a NASA guy there who was talking about all the cool things you could do in your classroom if you had like robots and stuff. And I'm like, awesome. What if you don't have textbooks? And there wasn't a great answer. So it started a conversation. So NASA started calling me. Let's say that again. NASA started calling me and asking my advice about stuff. hey, what do you think teachers could do with this? And how could we reach teachers to do that? And eventually I got the phone call. The phone call went like this. Ring, ring, hello, Stephen. I want to start this by saying, we're not having this conversation. That is the coolest thing that anyone has ever said to me in my whole life. In my head, I'm going, she's going to tell me about the aliens and so forth. I cannot confirm nor deny whether she actually told me about it. But I've been looking at the budget, and we want to create a position to hire you to come and work for NASA. Would you want to come and work for NASA? Now, you may have noticed that I don't have the best filter in the universe. So what fell out of my face before I could stop it was, I'm sorry, is this stupid question day? Of course I want to work for NASA. So for a year, I worked in a made-up position, worked through the Texas State University, and then after a year, a spot opened at the Johnson Space Center, and I slipped over there. And I spent the next 6 years as kind of NASA's Bill Nye. I got to go to conferences, I got to go to schools all over the country. I spent about 2 to 3 weeks a month traveling, bow tie in hand, or around my neck, I guess. Anyway, and actually, by the way, at one point, Bill Nye just thrown shade at me in public about our bow ties. It was kind of a wonderful experience. It was nice. I did that up until last February, where I switched over into the position I'm in now, and I'll talk about that a little more in just a second. I, along the way, had some other kids. So I have 5 kids. I have 3 that are biologically my fault, and 2 that came as package deals. My boys just look like me. So if you look at pictures of us at the same age or whatever, it's kind of like some of my friends and their grandfathers and fathers. That we have, like, is that me? No, that's Sebastian. No, wait, I think that's Jameson. It's that bad. So it's only context clues like mine are black and white now that you can use to tell. But one of the things, and obviously along the line, I'm pretty persuasive. I think I'm a pretty good public speaker to get people kind of on my side. But the #1 testament to my powers of persuasion is that I got that woman to marry me. When I said that she was out of my league, you think I was kidding. No. Because not only does she look like that, she is, and fellas, I highly recommend this if you ever get the opportunity. Sugar mamas are amazing. Amazing. So I bring old white guy credit and really good government benefits to the relationship. And she brings everything else that's good. But I traded in that Chevette for a new vehicle and a new life. And one of the things that I want to share through that is the value of failure. I am particularly good at failing. It is something that I have achieved over my lifetime, and I embrace that. I try to teach people that if you're gonna fail, go ahead and get that out of the way, but learn how to fail up. Learn how to fail epically. Learn how to fail because you're going for this thing that you should not possibly ever get to do, like talking to that amazingly beautiful woman and asking her the question that you think no way she's gonna say yes to. Sorry, go back. So Alejandro Alvarado, which is just fun to say, is a research scientist, and he has discovered more new species than anyone in history. So he dredges the ocean and just kind of looks in his sieves for new things and finds them all the time. And I heard him say, if you don't feel ignorant most of the time, you're not sciencing hard enough. And I just love that thought, that here's this person who's made all these amazing discoveries, and his favorite part, and when I'm talking to students and they ask me a question that we don't know the answer to yet, share with them that that's my favorite scientific answer ever. We don't know yet. So when you're pushing to the boundaries, you're going to hit that point a lot. That's where you want to live. You want to be in that place, because if you're only saying the things or learning the things you already know or talking to people who know what you know already, why? What is it that you're doing? So when I'm sharing activities, there's 2 things about failure that I really want to point out. The first is that we have a famous saying. It came from Apollo 13, the movie. And it was in the movie, it was said by Gene Kranz. He said, failure is not an option. And that's only half of the sentence. The other half is, it's a necessity. If you're going to innovate, if you're going to do something that people remember, if you're going to do something that matters, you're going to fail. Going to. And that's important. And it's important that we teach our students that, and then we get them used to that idea that failure is not only okay, you should be striving for that. You should be striving to do something that you've never done before. We have brain research on innovation that I found really interesting. There's a neuroscientist. That was studying the brain. He's also a musician, so he has that STEM background. What he did is he put musicians into an fMRI machine, which shows you what part of the brain is active. And in that machine, he would play music with them, but not music that they knew. They would innovate music. They would like riff off of each other. So he'd play a little piece, and then they'd make up something to go with it, and then he'd make it, and they'd go back and forth. And he looked at their brains to see what was happening. And it turns out that there are two areas in place for that. One of them is the innovation side. There's another thing that is your filter. That's the thing that keeps you from saying bad words in front of your kids, that keeps you in interviews, making sure that you're saying the right thing and doing all. If that is working, your creativity and innovation station shuts off. They're antagonists to each other. So if you're worried about failing, you're not going to be creative. You're not going to innovate. You're not going to do a new thing. It is physically impossible. So you have to let go of that idea, maybe become a little more like me, and not be afraid to look like an idiot. That's when creativity can happen. That's when the new things can happen, when you just let go of that fear of failure. And it's a physical thing that we can actually show you in a machine. I recently went through a pretty big failure, not of character, but just my body. I just recently had a birthday. I turned 51, like 2 weeks ago. And it was an important birthday because the previous birthday, shortly afterwards, I was diagnosed with cancer. I knew the treatments were coming. I prepared for them. So the picture on the right, that's me at about 225 pounds. So in addition to all the other things I do, I'm also a CrossFit trainer. I mean, obviously. I'm a nutrition coach, and I just threw myself into that. And I was eating about 3,500 calories a day. I got to the point where I had a 400-pound deadlift, a 300-pound back squat. I was big, I was strong, I was ready. The picture on the other side is me after. That's the same t-shirt, just to give you some context. And that's after I gained about 10 more pounds from where I lost. So going into the treatments, I'd gotten up to 225 pounds. 4 weeks later, I was 172 pounds. I see you. So that's not a failure that we can stop. But there was things that were going to happen. But because I knew that was coming, I was able to prepare for it, and we were able to be really aggressive. So what would have been a 6-month treatment plan actually ended up being 7 weeks. But in order to make that happen, I had radiation every single day. And the chemotherapy they gave me was so strong I could only have it once every 3 weeks. We did that for 7 weeks. I completely decimated that cancer, by the way. It's completely gone. There is no part of it left. But now I'm recovering from the treatments, and I'm having to embrace failure again. Can I go to the next one? So there are 2 separate videos. So if you click on the one with the pink shirt first. So I finished my treatments in February. That was March. That is a 75-pound barbell. That's it. I couldn't go past parallel in my squat, and if you watch me coming up, I was struggling with that 75 pounds. I weighed about 180 pounds right there. I was supposed to wait until I got my feeding tube out. I did not. Just jumped back in the gym. And then a month later, that's 185 pounds. By the way, I do not have it. I'm able to go much lower, but I couldn't get it back up. I wanted to show you that failure because 2 weeks later, I did that weight for 5 repetitions. I've now done 225 for 5. My deadlift went from 95 pounds up to 295 pounds. I'm on the precipice of breaking 300 again for multiple reps. But it only happens because I push to that point. I push to failure. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it, because failure is where innovation happens. It's where strength happens. It's where learning happens. So I'm going to leave you with this last thing. I don't want to leave you with my words because I don't think they're good enough. I'm going to leave you with the words of the inimitable Carl Sagan. He was part of the Voyager project, and when Voyager got to Neptune, which is the farthest planet from us, the last one of the 8 to get over it, he had to turn around and take a picture of us. And this is his thoughts about that picture and about how I think that we should all see each other. It should be like click for the video.
From this distant vantage point, Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Considering that dot.
It's a very pale dot. I'm saying it's there, I promise.
Eyes, love, know, you ever heard of, every human being who ever was. The arrogant or joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization. Every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father. Child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species, lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam.
You can stop it there.
The earth is a very small stage.
So I encourage you to look that up. It's called the pale blue dot. Listen to the rest of it. But the cosmic perspective, the perspective that astronauts get looking back at us, reminds them that it is us. It's not Canada and US, it's not black, white, Asian, there's just Earthlings. We're all just the same. So this is my information. If you scan that QR code, my email address is there, my cell phone is there. You are welcome to use any of those at any time. And I know that you don't get the chance to have a NASA guy in front of you necessarily all the time. So if you have questions, I would love to take those. Otherwise, thank you so much. So young people, do you guys have questions for the NASA guy? It can be about space, it can be about whatever. I can tell you how astronauts poop in space. I got all of it. No? All right, well, thank you guys so much.
Take that clip from you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Smith. A great presentation there. Again, Senior Project Coordinator with NASA's Micro G Next Challenge. As we, I guess, we're going to be taking a quick lunch right now. Well, let me get back into field of view. So we are going to take an hour lunch. Again, there's a lot of free stuff and some fun across at the Sportsplex. Then we're going to meet back here in College Boreal. We've got more amazing keynote speakers kicking off after the lunch break, beginning at 1. So if you have a chance, and don't forget to fill out a ballot and give yourself a chance to win the Nintendo Switch, courtesy of, we heard it was Klomp's credit card, or is it Jason Michaud? Anyhow, Jason Michaud going to give you the chance to win that today. And again, all you have to do is come on down. No purchase necessary. Fill out the ballot And again, join us today as we kick it off, the Stardust Festival 2023 here in Timmins for the first time ever. And it's happening right here at College Boreal. We're going to take a break and we'll be back after lunch.